Coming up on Being Rad.
There is a difference between men of fashion and men of style.
I wear white t-shirts and black jeans, and that's my styling done.
It was like a neurological bomb went off.
Hello and welcome to Being Rad with me, Robert Alexander Duran. Today I have life stylist Kimberly Parry with me. And what is a life stylist? I'm not even totally sure myself just yet. But luckily, we have Kimberly here to explain exactly what that means. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having me. As a life stylist, I have a really fun job of connecting life coaching with personal styling to help individuals reconnect with themselves and use their personal style to create a look and to create a life that's designed for them, custom tailored.
And how did you come across that as a service that was in demand? Because I've not seen anyone else doing it, so it's pretty niche.
It is, and that is what is so fun and powerful about it. I actually started as a religion teacher. I had made a career as an academic and as a religion teacher. I've always been passionate about spirituality. When most toddlers and young children go through their why phase, sometimes it's because they're defiant. Why do I have to do that? Why do I have to do that? For me, it was purpose. If I knew the purpose behind why I was doing something, you couldn't stop me from doing it. But if I didn't know the why, good luck getting me to do it.
Yeah.
I spent 16 years doing that. And then I had my own personal crisis, which is what leads a lot of us to personal development. I listened to your first podcast and heard your story. And in 2015, I had my youngest son. And 2 months after he was born, it was like a neurological bomb went off. All of a sudden, the right side of my body went numb. I thought I was having a stroke at first. I went into the doctors. They said nothing was wrong. And something was obviously wrong because my leg would go out on me and I couldn't sit or stand. And I ended up spending about a year with a bed in my living room, unable to move and function normally and having people drive me to doctor's appointments. And so in 1 year, I lost my marriage, my health, and my career and had to rebuild my life. And that's what led me to life coaching and navigating that kind of adversity. I became really passionate about helping people live their lives fully and authentically. And as I did that, I never planned on going to fashion. I never planned on getting into styling. I was very much about the soul and getting past all of that. And yet what I found is my clients, as they came to really get connected on a soul level to who they were, they started to find their external world didn't match their internal world. I had one client who said, I've been dressing for my mom since I was a kid. Like I'm still dressing for my mom, right? Like all of her clothes in her closet, or we dress for our bosses or what we think other people should think we should look like. And so I actually went and got trained as a personal stylist so that I could combine fashion styling with life coaching to help people find their voice and find their authenticity, the courage to live authentically in life. And it surprised me. It is incredibly powerful when, we feel comfortable in our own skin. And so it is a really cool path.
So with your clients, do they tend to be, this might be an assumption that I'm making because of how I feel towards fashion, is it more females that you work with? Because I can imagine it really taking off with females, whereas like with me, I wear white t-shirts and black jeans, and like that's my styling done.
Yes.
So,
And that's really fun. Yes, women tend to do that, especially women who are going through life transition, whether it's an age transition or a phase of life, divorcees, right? Often want to, find their it factor again and find their passion for life. And so women do really resonate with it. I actually was certified in menswear styling also. And
amazing.
I will say it is fascinating. I actually think if people understood the nuances between men's styling and women's styling, it would be a fabulous approach to marriage counseling and relationship counseling because it helps you understand so many different things. But it's not that men don't care about fashion. It's just they care about it differently and for different reasons. I will say men honestly will spend money more easily on styling because, sure, let someone else tell me what to wear, let someone else tell me what to do, but they're a lot more picky about what they wear. And so they'll spend more money, but it's almost harder to style them. But when men, here's my passion for men and styling. There is a difference between men of fashion and men of style, right?
Oh, dude, pray tell, like, what is the difference between those
Well,
two?
and we'll talk about being across the pond, right? I was an English major, and women love Mr. Darcy, right? You've got to go back to that. But in the Regency time period, it was like the heyday of explaining the difference between that. In the novels, there are men of fashion and men of style, and then there's the dandies, right? The dandies are the followers, and they're usually buffoons. They're trying to look like something they're not, and usually
The wannabes.
come off, yes, the wannabes, and they look very silly, right? Then there are the men of fashion who look good, but they tend to be the rakes in the novels, right? Like they can look good and allure people, but who they really are is different. But then you get the Darcys and you get the men of style. And usually, when it comes to different elements of fashion, they were the ones who cared about how their boots were shined, right? They were the ones who cared about, how their neckcloth was tied. And sometimes they would do it themselves and there would be something that was a little off or a little askew, but that became a fashion. But it was the men of style who knew who they were. Like Mr. Darcy, none of us play to others, right? That common quote. And he didn't. He knew who he was. He was consistent and he showed up. And what character is the lasting icon from that? The man of style. So that's a good question for your male listeners. And talking about leadership, there's leadership style, relationship style, communication style.
Yeah.
Are you a man of fashion, a man of style, or are you a dandy?
Would it be fair to say that a man of style, that's kind of synonymous with being a man of substance?
Yes.
And a man of fashion could look good, like you said, but really there's nothing beneath the veneer.
Yeah. Or they don't know what it is. And that can often be the case too, right? They know what they can present, but yeah, they're missing that inner connection. And that my core program, my core coaching program is called Unlocking Your It Factor, right? And that's what it is. Your internal truth is your spark. And when you know what that is, I mean, you could wear a paper bag and still activate the law of attraction because of who you are. It emanates, it comes through in everything that you do. Right. But if you're just a man of fashion, there's not a lot to back it up.
Do you think you could also relate that to content creation? Because you have all these people with hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok because they've done some dancing. Like there was that story about who couldn't sell 36 t-shirts. Can't remember how many followers she had. I think it was 2 million, actually.
Yeah.
Something like that. Couldn't sell 36 t-shirts because there was no substance to what she was putting out. And then you get the people who are very deep in the topic that they're talking about, don't have as many followers, but the followers they do have are really connected. Is that a fair connection to make?
Oh, I would definitely say so. And I would say for a lot of newbies, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm stepping on your area of expertise. I know that content creation is your area of genius. But I will say from my path as a coach, who uses content and marketing for myself, I think it can be easy to get caught in the rabbit hole of chasing a strategy, right? You see all the ads online of, get 1,000 TikTok followers overnight, or, here's how to do Instagram or Facebook ads or whatever. And people can chase the rabbit hole. But if you don't know who you are and if you don't know your audience, you can end up chasing the wrong rabbit hole, or trying to mimic someone else's pattern or style that's landed them a million viewers. But what lands it is when it's authentic and when it comes from that soul place rather than the dandy. Really, a lot of people end up being dandies in the social media world because they're chasing a strategy, trying to get followers or trying to get likes, but without being clear on their intent, without being clear on who they're talking to, and really trying to connect with an audience versus just trying to gain an audience, which is a different story.
Yeah, 100%. What kind of content have you found to work best for what you do then? And what do you enjoy making as well?
I love speaking. I'm a professional speaker also. And so I've actually recently found video content for me and doing things like this, having conversations with people about what I do and about who they are and connecting that way is what really resonates with me. So I've been doing more videos and shorts, and in the styling world, TikTok and Instagram, especially as you said, for women who are interested in that, are good platforms for that.
To try and do like an audio only podcast about fashion wouldn't really make sense because
no, not long term, but being a guest and being able to talk about it in different venues, because fashion is something that applies in all, I mean, unless you're a nudist, right? But most of us wear clothing to most events that we go to, right? And it translates into so many different areas of our lives. But yeah, having my own, down the road, maybe, right? But it really would be more of a personal development podcast than necessarily a fashion.
Well, you do both. So
it's true.
If you were to do something like this where you're having guests, you could bring people from both worlds and combine them just like you have done with your service.
Right. I see where you're going. He knows what he's doing.
So talk to me more about what your personal development journey looked like when all of that happened in 2015. We know the catalyst.
Right. And like I said, I've always been interested in spirituality. I want to say I have to thank Oprah Winfrey for a lot of my spiritual journey, before my crisis, because her show was what introduced me to a lot of people like Wayne Dyer and Marianne Williamson and people in the spiritual community. So I'd studied it. And like I said, I taught religion. So I thought I was pretty, spiritually connected and aware and all of these things. But when I was on the bed in my living room and everything that I had defined myself by, my career, my marriage, everything pretty much was ripped out from under me all at once, it provided a place for me to really get to the core of, do I believe it now? Right? What does that look like now? I've done all this spiritual work and talking about getting connected with myself, but when I can't get out of bed, who am I?
Did you feel a bit like Edward Norton in Fight Club, having hit rock bottom?
Really? Yeah. Yeah. And so, I say teaching spirituality and studying spirituality, right? You can do it in your head. And so I had done, in the academic world, I'd done the lectures, right? Like I'd gone to the lectures, I'd gotten the information, I had it in my head. But that moment in 2015, that catalyst got me into the practicum. It got me into the lab work where it was, okay, now it's time where, the feet meet the ground. And what does it look like to actually walk this? And in rebuilding my life, I wanted to rebuild it on something that wasn't going to get ripped away again, right? I didn't know if my symptoms were going to improve. I didn't know what my quality of life was going to look like. And so, if I got mobility, I didn't want that to change who I was. And so I really got clear on my core values, on my internal, my soul-based strengths rather than the doing strengths. And I found that is what creates resilience. At this point, I'm much more functional than I used to be. But everything is in constant change. I'm raising teenagers. At some point, they're going to be out of my house. My roles are going to keep fluctuating, but having that groundedness in my core identity, I have absolute confidence I can navigate any challenges, any circumstances that come because I've got that foundation to guide me through anything. And it's the foundation of success.
So if somebody was listening to this and thinking maybe they haven't hit rock bottom yet, but they were like, I don't really know what my identity is other than maybe who I'm married to or my capability to play football, all things
Right.
that are potentially transient. What would the initial advice be and initial steps that you would give somebody to start building that foundation?
Right. And I go through this in my core course, but I'll summarize it. The very first thing that I would say, and I love that you mentioned athletes also, because they live these astronomical lives and yet they can come crashing back to earth. One injury, not getting traded, not getting another contract, right? With celebrities, you can have this astronomical life, but if it's taken away,
Well,
then
hitting
what?
the age of 30 to 35 tends to screw them over as well.
Yes. Yeah. I call it a second adolescence, right?
Yeah.
Because all the, your body starts changing, your life starts changing, you're trying to figure out who you are. And it really is a second adolescence. And you don't have to hit rock bottom. But I would say the very first step and the very core, and I know a lot of life coaches talk about this, but it's to get really clear on your core values. Because your core values are like the guiding north in a compass. If you are dropping your core values, if you are doing something that's out of alignment with your core values, it'll give you a soul itch. It's one of those things that'll feel like it's off, and it can be off in a relationship. You might sacrifice your core values to stay in a relationship that may not be serving you. You may be in a career where you've kind of reached your soul growth in that path and might be scared to move past it. But if you're dropping your core values, whatever they may be, passion, dedication, development, creativity. I know creativity was one that you had mentioned in your podcast, right? If we're not feeding and fueling our core values, and if we're not aligned with it, that is really the biggest place where we get off track. And then the second piece would be learning to listen to your inner guidance. And it is a system. It's not just intuition. It's not just inspiration. It's a 3-piece system that I found in information, intuition, and inspiration. When you listen to those 3 things and you're aligned with your core values, that is your compass, and it will keep you guided on the path. And the things that you'll do will likely change. You'll go on different roads, but you'll be headed in the right direction if you stay in alignment with those 2 things.
How do you personally define core values? Because if anyone's got friends on Facebook who are coaches, everyone's heard about values, but people say you need to have your values solidified. How do you explain to someone what that actually means? And how do you know when you've hit something that it's like, yes, that's what I value, as opposed to going, I value integrity and honesty? Because most people will say that when really there's like 10 other things that they prioritize.
Yes. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about too. We usually.
Sorry, I'm just getting you to give away your whole program.
Oh no, you're good. And I don't have a corner on the market, right? I'm the Sherpa on the mount, right? It's truth, and it's taught in different ways, and you find what resonates with you. But being an English major, I taught English for a long time also. There is a power in words, and finding the right word and the right flavor for what your value is really important. And so when we talk about core values, it's a motivator. That's what I was. It's a motivating, not an emotion, but an energy, right? Because emotions can fluctuate. Like you can be angry in 1 second, and that's not a core value. But it's the things that motivate you throughout your life, and you can look from when you were a kid until now, and find those things that really like what motivated you to join a sport in school, or what motivated you to study something in college, or whatever. And so I usually have my clients go through 5-year periods, starting at 5, 10, 15, 20, and look at, what are some of those common threads that go through. And I also say you need to tune down the external voice, right? And not pay attention to what your parents said you should value or what your religion said that you should value, right? Because people can tell you honesty and integrity, right, should be your main core values. But if perseverance is a higher priority for you, then honesty, and it doesn't mean that honesty is bad, right? It just means it's not going to be your motivator.
Yeah.
And when you find those motivators, right, that's what's going to determine it for you. So I usually I have a sheet in the course, and I tell my clients and you can find a variety of lists of core values online. For anyone who's listening, I would just say pull one up. And I set a timer. I tell my clients 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week. That's what my program is. Simple, practical soul work. You don't have to go to an ashram and meditate for 5 hours to get your core value. Just go through a list, set a timer, circle any words that stand out to you. And you'll find there will be certain words that just jump off the page and resonate in your gut. And that's when you know you found one. If you find some words that you feel like you should circle, right? That word should usually is listening to someone else's voice.
I really love that definition that you've given there. And in listening to you saying that, you said about how, like, why did you join certain sports, etc. It made me realize, which I've not done consciously particularly before, I think one of my core values is actually skill. Because I'm not into rugby. I know boxing has skill, but like it's too rough and tumble for me. I played basketball in school, and then I played golf with my dad. So that more like that finer element of skill and finesse is something that I really value, which then flows into like the video editing kind of stuff as well. So,
and there's your Darcy factor. Do you hear that? Like when you talk about the skill and the precision and the things like, I mean, that's a Darcy factor right there.
The it factor, is it?
Your it factor. Yeah. Your internal truth. And you can feel, do you feel the energy of that even when you say that? Like, does it light you up when you talk about the skill and the precision and the technique that comes to something?
Partly, but then partly it infuriates me because look at the sport of golf. It's infuriating every time that you play, even if you're on a good run. Like the chances are by the end of the round, you'll have hit a few bad shots because you got complacent. So there's always that, like, it's very polarizing. Like it does light me up, and like I have the value of attaining the highest level of skill in these areas, but also there's the level of being infuriated because it's so difficult to reach high levels of skill. And so there's like friction there, but it's a worthy endeavor because that's the thing. I had a discussion with a lady the other day on here, Sue Ellen, and we were talking about like neurodivergence and that I was violently ADHD as a child. And much like what you were saying at the start, like if I don't know the purpose of something, I get bored. I don't want to do it. So I need that friction, the being infuriated at trying to figure things out, but also the endeavor to get it right, to just want to do it to start with.
And that's a motivator for you. For some people, that frustration with the friction is a place where they'd say, oh, no, not for me, right? It's not their value. It's not their motivator. But with you, it creates this friction where it's that, catch 22 where it's, on the one hand, it's super frustrating and yet it's a motivator for you. And that's something that, like, should the worst happen, if there's an accident or something and you've got this like major physical adversity to go through, there's skill and precision and all of that in, physical therapy and recovery in, overcoming any obstacle. That's why core values are so important to identify, because when you find yourself in that place of needing to dig deep, when you know what your core values are, you can tap into those more quickly and recover and rebound more quickly than feeling totally lost. And now it's a time for me to explore it when I'm in this dark place.
Absolutely. And also, I think it comes from the level of fulfillment at the end as well. Because I like
Yes.
playing guitar, as you can see, guitar on the wall. I've been playing 22 years this year, I think. And I know what it's like to try and figure out how to play something and not be able to get it for ages. But then when you finally do and it clicks, like that is the moment that you're working so hard for. How much does like identity work come into play with what you do with your clients? Because from what you've said, that whole experience in 2015 that you had, kind of similar to what I went through at 27.
Yeah.
Where you have to rebuild your identity. Like, I'm a totally different person to who I was like 5 years ago. And I've had to accept that because I've lost friends just through having a change of interest, like the whole not drinking thing. This comes up on basically every podcast that I do now, at least for the last 5 episodes. But like, I had friends who I would drink with, and that was it. That was the basis of our relationship. So I've had to come out of that as a different person. Is that what you're helping your clients with? I assume so, because you give them a new wardrobe, they're walking out the door in different clothes.
Yes. Well, and it's more than giving them a new wardrobe. It's giving them the skills to create their own style. And that's what I teach them. The foundation and the core of everything that I do is that core identity work. The identity coaching I would do without styling. I can do that separately. Styling, some people are like, oh, well, will you just create a look for me? That's not what I do. I help people find their voice as they find themselves. And so what we start with is that core identity, helping them understand the different aspects of their personality, helping them understand different strengths and weaknesses that they may want to support and empower in different situations. If you're going into a business presentation and you know that you have a tendency to feel insecure around a certain individual in the room, or you hold yourself back, I start with intention with my clients. What is your intention? What is it that you need to feel empowered in that situation? And then we move to the external. Okay, so what clothing do you have that can help support you? And it is really interesting to see what happens. One example, I had a client who was going into a legal situation and felt intimidated going in against an individual who had historically intimidated and, tried to bully her into caving. But she knew she needed to stand up for herself. She knew she needed to go into that situation and just needed something to feel empowered. And it ended up being a pair of socks. No one could even see it. The judge couldn't see it. The other person couldn't see it. But knowing that she had these bold, fun socks on while she's in a professional suit and, has the presentation that's appropriate for that situation, she went in, and for the first time, this guy could not intimidate her, even in a legal courtroom. And so that's the power of style versus the power of fashion, right? You can wear anything. You can look good. You can look empowered, but she felt empowered because she knew who she was. She knew the weaknesses that could come up in that situation and dressed to empower herself with intention to navigate that. And she did it beautifully, if I do say so myself.
When it came down to her socks.
Yeah, down to socks. And it can be cufflinks. It can be a watch. It can be, there's so many different things. A tie, the cravat hasn't gone away. It's just changed its name. There's 85 ways to tie a tie. And yet most men use one of two ways usually. Yeah, like a half Windsor or whatever, but just simple knots. But yeah, like there's little things that you can use. And even in a t-shirt, you said, oh, this is me, I wear a t-shirt, but the t-shirts you wear, have some kind of meaning to you. There's a reason that they're comfortable to you. There's a reason that you show up in those. And there's ways to intentionally wear a t-shirt that brings your it factor to life.
Well, it's funny that you said about how men are more picky.
For sure.
I won't wear just any white t-shirt.
Sure.
I tend, like, apart from this Vans one, the ones that I wear currently are all, I can't remember the name, American Basics or something.
Okay.
Can't remember. but they come from
But
like
the feel.
it's mainly the length, because I
Yep.
inherited a long back and short legs off my dad. So, and I don't like it when they rise, like when I'm sat down, if they rise up on my back,
Yep.
that feels uncomfortable. So yeah, I'm very
Uh-huh.
picky, but to the outside world, he just wears
Oh,
white
there's
t-shirt.
but no, and it's those little nuances. You would know if for some reason your go-to t-shirt was not available, you'd know that you were
Yeah.
in something different, and it would affect the way that you could be present. It can affect the way that you can show up. And, people don't understand it's a ripple effect in how it can affect your success in your presentation in life. Those little details make a difference.
And don't even get me started on boxers.
I'll let you handle that. But yes, we all are intimate with our intimate apparel, and it is the closest thing to our skin too. So it does make a big difference.
Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to get into that too much.
No, I think we've hit that one.
If I came to you as somebody who does 99% of the time just wear, like I said, white t-shirts, step-on boxers, black jeans, and black socks, what would your advice to me be?
Well, it wouldn't even be so much of advice. And that's one thing that surprises people, because they come there like, okay, tell me what to wear. And it usually will come with a question, and it will be, what's not working in it for you? You wear it every day. You've got a comfortable pattern. You've got something that you felt comfortable in. What is it that you want that you don't have?
If I was pressed to answer that, it would probably be variation. But again, This is how my mind works, with like the endeavor of attaining high levels of skill, but then the frustration of it being hard. I like not having variation because it cuts down how many choices I have to make. So,
right. Well, and what we wear tells us a lot about how we live our lives, right? That's that same thing. As you said, there's this pattern where variation is good and change is good. As you know, in business and profession, if you want to be successful, you don't want to hit a plateau, right? You do want to have some variation and change. And so it would be, what we would dive into would be looking at the characters that make you you. Okay, you have some things that you have confidence in, that you show up in consistently. Let's look at some areas of your personality. Let's look at some areas of your life where you want to step those up a little bit. And we'd add some variety based on those goals and based on that intention that you want to bring. And it may just be throwing in a light heather gray t-shirt into the mix and throwing that in one day a week, or, throwing in maybe a collared shirt, like stepping it up a notch with a soft cotton, where you still have that huggable feel and you still have the length, but you've got a little bit of a collar where it steps it up a little bit with that style. And so we'd play around and see what resonated with you. I look at core values also. What are the values that come into your shopping trends, that come into your choice of fabrics and your choice of construction? And we'd play around and we'd find some variety for you.
Great answer. Unfortunately, one of my other core values, and this sounds bad, and I know it does, is laziness. I'm inherently lazy. So, like I said, 99% of the time, that's partly why I wear the same thing. But like with what Bill Gates said, he would always employ somebody who was lazy over being a hard worker, because lazy people find the best ways to do things. And my commitment to being lazy is exactly that. Like, I'm willing to put in more time up front to find a better solution to something, rather than do a mediocre solution for a long time. Hence, being in business, like, I'd much rather work really hard whilst young to build a business that's going to support me later on, than work a career and have a crap retirement. But I do have some variation. I should point that out. I do have a few polo shirts.
Well, there you go. For your fancy days.
I do have some check shirts as well.
Yeah.
I haven't worn them in a while, but yeah.
See, and now that it's on your radar, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if an opportunity comes up where you think, oh, I might need to get that check shirt out of the closet, or, oh, I might get that polo out, right? Just once it comes to the attention. And I would also say simplicity and efficiency are different than laziness too, right? Like there's There's an efficiency that goes along with that level of discipline and skill too, where efficiency combined with that, it's the, work smarter, not harder thing that's not necessarily a laziness, it's a simplicity. And so you would not resonate well. Like if you did want to up your style, you wouldn't resonate well with a traditional stylist who's saying, oh, well, you need to wear a better brand because it'll look sharper and feel cooler or whatever. Image doesn't sound like that's on your radar, but if it's saying, okay, let's keep it simple. We know your comfort zone. We're not going to go crazy out of your comfort zone, but let's go comfort zone, introduce you to a couple of other traditional classic designers who, design for the tall, long torso and the, different things. And I bet that would, where you're like, oh, simple, quick, easy, aligned with me. And it'd be a smooth transition for you.
Everything you just said there did sound far more attractive than what I've seen of stylists before, like on TV. And
it's custom. Some people want that, some people want the designer label and the image. Some people come for that. And that is their core value. And it'd be a totally different discussion. And that's why style is so individual, custom tailored to your specific personality and dynamic.
What are your favorite brands?
Mine personally, I go for ease and comfort also. I do like Cole Haan. I do like, I actually like Banana Republic. I like some of the ready wear things that have, thicker materials, more comfortable materials, but they're still simple, classic. Ann Taylor. I really do like Ann Taylor, Kate Spade, some of those. But
admittedly, ashamedly, possibly, I haven't even heard of many of those brands.
A lot of them are female.
That'd be why.
Yeah.
What about? Well, what are your thoughts on Versace, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all of that?
Oh, I love them. I will say there's a difference between fashion and style. Fashion is about the artistry and construction and creativity in the industry, right? Fashion is about clothes and style is about who you are. I am more simple and classic, right? So there are certain pieces in those that I would resonate with. But I love the artistry and the creativity in the industry. I think that there are certain personalities that very much are suited to those. Oh, I love Ralph Lauren also. But anyway, it's a different take. Like I would love going to a runway show and just appreciating the artistry, like going to a museum or going to a really great play, going to the theater or going to the opera. It's that kind of artistry and creativity in that sphere. And I don't, my personal take is I don't think everybody needs to be pushed to buy that or wear that to feel comfortable. And not everyone would feel comfortable in it, you know, and yet I appreciate the construction. I appreciate the value for the price. I appreciate all of it.
Yeah. I get what you mean about the personality types, because as you've probably already picked up, not my personality type, but I have an ex-girlfriend who is a bespoke fashion designer, and everything you just said there was exactly what she was into.
And so for her, I've seen, I met a woman once who was the epitome. She was not a model. She wasn't in the industry, but she was literally what I would classify as a fashionista. I mean, she could wear, a Walmart and make it look designer, but I mean, she could put pieces together in a way, like I just looked at her and it was like looking at a sculpture. And yeah, I mean, there are clothing for everyone and a style for everyone.
Apart from the nudists.
Well, and that is a style. That's what works for them, right? Their birthday suit, they wear it every day, and it works. I'm not comfortable in that, but there are people who are.
I never have been comfortable just walking around naked in the changing room or whatever. I wasn't as a kid in school, and I still don't really do it now. Like, I like white t-shirts, black jeans, sorted.
And And there's your trademark. There's your trademark style.
Part of the brand, you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I've kind of lent into blue being my cover. So grayscale, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Monochrome and blue.
There you go. There you go. And it works. And it works. And there's simplicity that goes with that.
Kimberly, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today. Before we wrap this up, can you let people know, watching and listening at home, where they can find you to turn around their life and wardrobe all in one?
Yes, you can find me at emergencelifecoaching.com, EMERGENCE lifecoaching.com, and all of my services are listed there, and you can find more about me on my website.
Nice and easy, and there'll be a link below the video on YouTube and in the show notes on Spotify and all that. I like that was nice and easy, not just reading off several different URLs for social media. So emergencelifecoaching.com.
Yep.
Go and find Kimberly. So Kimberly, thank you so much once again. And for you watching and listening at home, keep being rad.